All right, and it is Wednesday, May 6th. Welcome to This Fan's View Wednesday edition. We are talking memorabilia. We have Carl, John, Lauren, Anthony, myself, and again, for a return visit, Steve Harris. How's everybody doing tonight?
How you doing?
Doing well. Doing well.
We got the new look with the headsets, and
Yep. We're
hopefully
ready to
it'll
do
sound better.
flybys. We're calling in for a landing for this one.
So you want to jump right into it, or are we going to start with who wore it best, who won?
Who wore it best? Yep.
Well, I think if you followed the script, John was going to start with who wore it best. So maybe you need to read the script.
I said before the show, I didn't know knowing how to read was a requirement to be on the show.
John, who wore it best?
Well, we had a pretty big turnout on Monday night. We had 62 votes coming in. That was pretty awesome with all our viewers. Dr. J smashed it though with 50 votes himself for the win. And Ryan Howard was second. Sav Rocket got a vote for those people that weren't sure if he was even going to get one. And Moose Dupont had two. So tonight's contest is number 7. We have for the Phillies, we have Bobby Wine that we ended up breaking down, which we had a few other numbers that were players that we could have picked from. We had Ron Jaworski for the Eagles, Billy Barber for the Flyers, and that to tie it all in with our last dance and everything, Tony Kukoc for the Sixers. So we have an interesting battle tonight, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
We got a guy in Jaworski that's taking us to the Super Bowl, who's Philadelphia Soul owner, many championships there. We got Billy Barber though with the Stanley Cup champions, with the Flyers, a retired, Hall of Famer, retired number. It's going to be interesting to see how everybody votes tonight.
Yeah,
it's that's what makes this game fun and interesting. We have a lot of back and forth, even with the comments when we have the post up there for until tomorrow night at 7:30 when we get the votes. To hear the back and forth between other people, why this person should get it, or why we were wrong and we should have picked other people and and try to get the write-ins in and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's going pretty well. So
all right.
Dad, who's your vote?
My 2 cents is Billy Barber versus John LeClaire in our other contest on the Carl's Cards page, the autograph. And I would have thought Billy Barber would have done a whole lot better versus John LeClaire. And no disrespect to Johnny, I love John LeClaire, but Billy just didn't hold up at all in that contest.
Nope.
No, that was a runaway.
None whatsoever. But I'm sticking with my hockey guys. I got to go Billy. Go Billy.
And you, Carl, will be one to know. You had 3 of the 4 guys in your store, for sign-ins, which are going to tie into tonight's show as well. So you and Steve have all the experience of who's the best personality too.
Tony, what do you got?
Definitely Ron Jaworski. I mean, not only in the city, people know him everywhere you go. I don't know. I feel like it wore it best. Ron Jaworski sort of like, is known not only throughout the city, everywhere. I mean, that's a big name there. So that one's easy for me. I think that's Ron Jaworski.
I'm gonna go Bill Barber.
Billy Barber.
He is a nice guy. He came to a benefit that we had at the store a couple years ago. Bill Mattis' son passed away, and we had a fundraiser at the store, and he came out for that. Right, Dad? Did he?
I'm not so sure about Billy.
No? Do I have that wrong with somebody else?
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure about Billy on that. We had a ton of guys come out.
Right.
All
right. Well,
let's backtrack to AP for a sec because he's not a Philly guy first and foremost. So I'm going to throw the challenge flag on him.
You're going to have to call it every week then, because that is what it is.
I've been thinking about this, and we were having you on the show for your input for the Reading Fighting Phils and minor league baseball. So, I don't know how you weaseled your way into that.
You invited him. You told him to come on.
By the way, if you look at the votes so far, I think I'm about 100%. So just saying. But go on.
Barber's running away with it tonight,
No
and his number is retired. So if we're going with who wore it best, how about a retired number?
What are you basing it on?
The contest is who wore it best. It's very vague.
What are you basing it on? You basing it on performance for sports, or you basing it on personality?
I think it's all vague on purpose. So
It is. 'Cause it's based on your personal opinion.
Right. It's based
Just
on
your
purpose.
perception.
Just like the autograph guest showdown thing on the Carl's Cards page.
Yep.
There have been people voted off that should have never been voted off.
Well, first of all, when you talk about in that poll, for example, like John LeClair, I can easily see John LeClair winning because younger people know John LeClair, older people love John LeClair.
You call me old?
It's very easy. No, I'm just saying. I'm saying.
Don't worry about it, Steve. It's his last show. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, I'm still going with Bill Barber. Mario, who do you have?
I know what you guys are thinking, but I'm going with Bill Barber. I was going to go with Jaworski, but then flashbacks in my head. When I was growing up, I was a big hockey guy when I was growing up. So I had these stickers, like stamps for collecting, and I had almost all of them. And I specifically remember him growing up. So I'm going with Barber.
Steve?
Huh. I'm tough on this one. But I think I'm going to go, if you're going by just my own perception and not just I'm going with Billy Barber.
There you go.
Jaworski did a lot for the city, but I think I'm going with Billy.
Yep.
John, you going with Bobby Wine?
Spud, you're going for Spud Davis.
Spud Davis. I'm going with Billy Barber as well. Like you said, retired number. You have to go.
Yeah.
You got to go there, and he was also one of our first interviews at Carl's store. No, he had a nice little interview with us on this Fans View.
He did.
So.
Good point. I forgot about that.
That's why I'm here.
That was before my time.
That's just not a lump on your shoulders. I know.
It's not. It's a hat rack. So I would say Billy Barber would be the winner here. But like I said, Jaworski's done a lot. He's still doing a lot even today. For Philadelphia. But Polish Rifle, he's still one of the good guys. He
is.
But
Absolutely.
like we were saying, that's a tough part with this competition or battle that we're having. It's discussion. There's no right answer. It's just a matter of who you prefer. And it's all personal taste, and we just go with it.
Mike Taylor's on board with us tonight. He was the cameraman for that interview with Billy Barber.
There you go.
So we've got that authenticated, that interview. So
yes, it was.
All right. So are we ready to transition to tonight's topic of sports memorabilia, collectibles, all that good stuff?
Sure.
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready.
Do we want to start with our items, or are we going to end with that? I'm not sure how you want to pan that.
What's the script say?
Good one, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
We knew we got you here for a reason.
I know this is my last time, so.
You're letting it all hang out.
Yeah, so make it worth it, Steve.
Hey, Steve, there's one thing you got to keep in mind. There are no rules. You can say whatever you want, whenever you want.
Well, not whatever you want. This is a family show. This is a family show.
I got to keep it clean. I'll keep it clean.
So let's go back to how it all got started,
Okay.
because I know that was one of your footnotes.
That was part of the script.
I know. I read it.
I read it 5 minutes
read
ago, but I read it.
But,
I don't care when you read it.
so this whole thing, the store starting its operation goes back to 1995. Plain and simple. We started out very, very small.
Real small.
Yeah,
As small as you get.
we weren't sure, the direction. We weren't sure if it was going to be a full-time thing, a part-time thing. We didn't know. Not much has changed. We still don't know today. But it all got started. We were, we were in a small store.
What was that
not
address?
far, 2027 Darby Road.
Okay.
Right under the apartments.
Right under the apartments, right across from Terry's Deli, brew your own beer. What else is there now? Havertown Bike Shop.
Mhm.
We were there for 3 years.
Oh, right by Peabody's?
Across
Right
the
down the street.
Okay.
Right within walking distance. Yep.
So then in 98 is when you moved down to Darby Road. Down.
That is correct. 1217 Darby Road, right off of Brookline Boulevard.
Yep.
Yep.
And how long were you there?
When do we exit out of there? 2000. She left the room. I don't know where my date girl left the
Your
room.
bookkeeper.
Yeah. 2006, 2007.
Okay.
But you're going to leave that next door out of it, right? Where you went to that, right?
That, you know what? No, because that has legs. That story, that store, was a great story, and brought me back to Havertown when I thought I was dead.
Mhm.
When I was dead in the water, it brought me back to Havertown, where we are today. So just to bring people up to where we're at, or where we were, we moved out of Havertown for 8 months out to Broomall, right off of Westchester Pike, which I thought we needed a change of scenery. Parking was a little difficult at 1217, so we transitioned out to Broomall, and it was and I'll admit, it was probably the biggest mistake of my life. But I had a phenomenal landlord, Wagner's Real Estate, right there on the corner. I signed a lease. He let me out of the lease.
How long were you there before you decided to leave?
8 months.
What was the biggest issue? Just not enough traffic.
None. Zero.
Wow.
And I thought I had done my homework. There were 5,600 addresses in Broomall. And I thought, it was within walking distance, bike distance for kids to get to.
And it wasn't even that far from Havertown. So even the people
and it was right
who
off
you
the
moved
pike.
away from didn't go there.
It just didn't. It just never happened.
Do you think it was more of a thing with the location, or just because it was hidden in the back? Like, was there?
It's a combination of several things. But let me just say this much: if anybody's thinking about going in business today, location is the key. If people don't see you, they're not going to find you. Pure and simple. When we got the opportunity to move back to Havertown and where we're at, I wish we were there the whole 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just a phenomenal location. We've got great neighbors. We got a great support staff all around us, from Bryn Mawr Trust Bank to Orner's across the street. Just a total, great atmosphere. So that's where we're at. We're now at 22 West Eagle Road, Havertown, Pennsylvania.
And so is it safe to say you've been there since what, 2007?
6.
Yeah.
According to Sue.
Is that what she said? 6?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. 6 or 7.
Well, 2006 is when we moved out of 1217.
Okay.
There
So
you go.
you were there for 8 months or so. I don't remember the month. I remember it being kind of warm. When we moved to the Broomall store, isn't that when Vinny helped us and we moved in a giant Coors Light truck?
It was a beer truck. It
Yeah.
was a beer truck, and we moved the entire store, out of there and into 22 West. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
From the comments, it sounds like Sue really liked the store right before. She called it a rat hole.
That's in relation to my grandmother, who asked us why we ever moved there in the first place. Because didn't you know it was a rat hole?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone is wanting to know where home is for you, Dad.
My physical home is now Glen Mills, Pennsylvania, about a half hour from Havertown.
But you didn't grow up in the suburbs.
I did not. I'm a Philly boy. I'm a Southwest Philly boy. And I'm not sure if that's the same. Is that the same Dave Brown that has that's a local guy that wrote a book? Maybe he'll answer because I think I may have met him. If that's the same, could be where no, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, no, I'm a Southwest Philly boy. Born and raised Southwest. Moved out to the suburbs. And here I am. Delco strong. Havertown's a great community to raise a family. The schools are phenomenal. They do a lot for the community, for the kids. I can't say enough good things about Delco, especially Havertown.
In the midst of all that moving and the different stores and whatnot,
Right.
you did a lot with shows, though, because a couple people are commenting that they met you at the Springfield Mall or the McDade Mall.
Yep.
What was the first show you ever did? Do you remember what mall it was in?
Get ready, Steve Harris, because this is going to be your segue. Okay, so don't be sleeping.
Can I not off for this?
Don't nod off. I started doing shows because we didn't have the store at the time, so we were doing Wednesday night card shows out in Exton. We would do weekend things, more fire hall, smaller type shows before we actually moved into the mall settings of McDade Mall, Springfield Mall, Granite Run Mall. So yeah, it was kind of like you took baby steps. It was baby steps along the way, and
how far did you travel, Carl? Because you mentioned, Atlantic, not Atlantic City, but the Jersey Shore. Sometimes you mentioned Reading. How far did you go?
There was two great malls out in Reading back in the day, Berkshire Mall and the one on Fifth Street. What was it? The Reading Fairgrounds. They were two great shows back in the day. We would go down. Steve Harris and I would travel down to Ocean City, New Jersey. Drag our stuff across the boardwalk into the music pier and do the show there. And John's got a smirk on his face because, John has crossed paths with us, not knowing us at some of these spots because, he was a dealer back in the day as well.
Yeah, just for a little bit. But yeah, no, I would always visit you at the store, at all those malls or shows. I've been doing this since probably 1980, doing collectibles and stuff. And
There you go.
When I was 8 years old, having my grandparents or my parents drive me around to get players' autographs, and my grandfather still hates Mike Schmidt because he we went to the Cherry Hill, I think it was the Cherry Hill Hyatt, I think it was on the day, and my grandfather opened the door for Mike Schmidt, and he just walked in the door and didn't even say thanks or anything. And my grandfather for 25 years before he passed away still wouldn't let him leave that one go. Every time I see him, I hate that Mike Schmidt. He never said thanks to me.
Do you guys miss the shows themselves, or do you just miss that time? I mean, what do you feel about the shows now and that sort of thing?
Oh,
for me personally, I miss the people. I don't miss, packing stuff up and having to move in and out of a location. I don't miss that at all. I miss the people. I still try to go back to the Neshaminy Mall to visit some old friends. and and as soon as I walk in, I just shake my head and I'm like, I don't miss this one bit.
Right.
It just it's a lot of.
Uh-oh.
We used to roll into some of these shows on, for 3 days, and we
Sit at the
didn't sit
mall
down.
for what, 12 hours a day?
Yeah.
Yep, we ate well though, didn't we?
Oh, we did, and we had fun. We had fun checking. Mom, you awake?
Yeah.
Well,
No, that-
it's funny because the segue of me doing shows early on when my father-in-law was alive, he used to go with me. He used to travel with me, and then he became ill and eventually passed away. And my mother-in-law was like, "I can go. I can help you. I can watch your stuff." And I'm like, well, I need somebody to keep an eye out when I go to the bathroom or go, get something to eat or whatever. And she filled in admirably. She was great. People loved her. They talked to her. She became a fixture, in our setup. And she used to fall asleep a lot.
right.
So she clearly did a wonderful job making sure your stuff was good when you left.
And like you said, Carl, the best part of doing the shows is the interaction with all the people that come in and just talking. And, because let's face it, us that do the collectibles, it's sometimes hard to talk to other people because some people are like, what is that? Like, why are you doing that or whatever? And, just even if that person may not like your specific team or whatever, just the fact that, hey, you have this pretty cool item. They respect that and like that, and it's you had that camaraderie between back and forth between people.
Well, I mean, speaking about people, so we'll fast forward, but I want to get back to the McDade Mall because this is how a couple of these guys that are here sitting with us tonight became friends of mine, and we eventually are where we're at today. But Mario, you came in the store one day with Ernie for the Carlos Ruiz signing.
No, it was
right?
actually Bob Boone.
Was it Bob Boone?
It was
Okay.
Bob Boone, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Another Phillies catcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right
So-
position, wrong guy.
And the funny thing is, Carl, I actually knew Steve and Carolyn well before I knew you.
Yep.
So it was eventual that our paths would cross at some point.
Yeah, you worked with Steve at Bradley's.
Yep,
Right.
both of them,
Carolyn, who helped us out many years. And if I called her up right now and said, "Hey, could you work tomorrow?" She would be there.
Yep.
She worked at Bradley's as well.
Yep.
Steve Harris, his wife Christine, you guys all worked at Bradley's together.
If you ever get a chance to talk to her, ask her how we met.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you on here. It's a little not a family show oriented story. So I'll tell you off air.
Oh,
What
Interesting.
year was that, Mario, that you came to the store? I don't know what year we had Bob Boone off the top of my head.
It was oh God.
When did Ernie pass away?
2016.
Okay, so it was a couple years prior to that.
I'd say about 5 years before that.
Okay.
So, and then that's when we ended up going down to spring training and hanging out with you guys for the week.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
oh yeah.
So,
So if we backtrack to probably what, Steve, the early 90s for the McDade Mall?
Well, it would be 95 or before, because I would stop at the card show on Wednesday nights on my way home from work when I was working out in Glenmore, PA, which where you lived.
Exactly. Yep. You were in the construction business then.
Yep, and I would stop I'd drive right past the hotel on the way home and would stop in the mall there, and I started seeing you there. And then...
So you weren't a dealer, Steve. You were a buyer.
Yeah, I was just buying, collecting.
Got it.
It was more buying to sell. So yes, that's called a dealer.
Well,
If
At that
the
point,
government's
it was-
listening, he
yeah.
don't want the IRS to know.
so
Oops,
yeah,
they
that
know
was.
now.
And then he opened up the store in '95, right, Carl? After you got rid of your Camaro.
I sold my Camaro to start the business. Yes. Yep. Yep.
And there was a coin / card guy. He would just sell packs and not really singles up the street. But then
Mike's Collectibles.
No, this was Alex, the coin guy.
Oh, Alex, the coin guy. Yes. Yep.
Alex.
Yep.
And then when you opened up the store, I started going in there because he had more cards and stuff.
But weren't you helping Mike down
I was
on
also-
Westchester Pike? You were helping him.
Yeah.
So
I
you
was
were a
helping-
dabbler. You were dabbling all over.
Yeah, I would help him, but then your place was closer and I started hitting that and I think I started helping you out there.
Yep.
Sue say 93.
Yeah, before 93.
Yeah, before 93. Yeah.
So not to
93.
get into how the industry has changed, because that could be a whole nother show. But it
Oh, yeah.
seems like now, rather than there are every now and then some people have shows at a local mall, but it seems like now instead of those shows every other week at other malls, it seems like there's 1 or 2, 3 big shows a year that these dealers come to. I don't know if you guys could speak to that a little bit. How that sort of came about. Is that part of the bigger question of how everything happened? I didn't know how that started.
Well, I think for that, I think it mainly a lot of the smaller shows broke down because of eBay. Once eBay started up, because it was a lot easier to sell it there. You didn't have to pay, for a table.
Sit at the mall for 30 hours.
Right. You're at home. Oh, look, I just sold something today. Let me go get it packed up and ship it out. So I think that, and that also killed the hobby as far as from the buyer's perspective as well, because you can especially here in, let's say, Philadelphia, a Phillies card here would be $5, but you could buy one on eBay, the same card for $1 because the guy's in Oklahoma is selling it or
Don't care
Alaska,
about. Right.
and doesn't care about it, and he just wants to sell it, and it goes cheap, type of thing. So, and then it's delivered right to your house. You don't have to move anywhere. It's kind of like that, lazy.
And was that towards the middle of the 90s, later in the 90s? When did those mall shows start to?
Probably,
Probably later 90s.
I was going to say late 90s into 2000s, probably, like right when.
Yeah, definitely into 2000 for sure.
Yeah, it was
Early
definitely the
2000.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was if you looked in the back of Beckett magazine, for the schedule, there was a mall show every weekend.
Every weekend.
right.
From you
and just
go
for
from
the-
South Jersey, Pennsylvania, out to Reading, Lancaster. I mean, you're talking about an hour and a half each way.
Wow.
A 3-hour, travel.
We go all the way up to what's the one the father and son used to run.
Well, that was up in Lehigh Valley.
Easton and stuff. And
Yep, Easton Mall, Allentown,
Whitehall.
yep.
I mean, was every weekend.
Right.
So it sounds like the big guys just sort of gobbled them all up.
Well, again, it was just more of a convenience that you can get it on eBay, and once those type of things came about, and especially for the people that would be selling local stuff, nobody would buy it from them at the show because you could buy it on eBay a lot cheaper, and for your collection. So, but just as well, like how you were saying, I mean, they even had a full page ads in the Daily News on Thursday. Was it Thursdays? I believe it was for.
That was one of them.
Yeah, that would have the shows, the weekly shows, and I mean there was 5-6 shows, and plus also too the players. I think some of it has to do not only eBay, but also like the players. The prices for the players to do appearances went through the roof a little bit, and then that made it harder for promoters to have those guys to come out, which made it attractive for people to go to those shows. So I think it's a combination of a few things like that.
But I think the autograph guests always came out, and Carl, you could probably vouch for this. To get the guests to come out, the hockey guys were always a little less expensive and more willing to come out.
That seems like the same today.
I agree.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I totally agree. I mean, you're talking about a hockey guy, so you're talking about a Gordie Howe. To spend $10,000 to bring a Gordie Howe type name to the store, equate that to another sport. Mike Schmidt's not coming out for 10 grand.
Right.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Michael Jordan's not coming out for millions.
Dr. J's not coming out for 10 grand.
Yeah. Bryce Harper's
Charles Barkley won't even answer anybody's emails or phone calls.
Right.
So yeah, the hockey guys, and you again, they're more persons, as far as they care about it. They're interested in being there. They'll talk to you. They'll listen to you. And I'm not saying that you don't have that with some of the other, the other athletes, because I'm not going to sit here and point fingers, because that's not the right thing to do. But hockey just always seems to be, and still is today, your go-to sport. Look at my personal relationship with Bernie Parent over the years. It's just impeccable for me. Last week, he calls me at 9:00 in the morning to tell me about this new promotion. And Lauren, you got one of the bandanas, I guess, in the mail today that he's doing with Ed Snyder Youth Hockey Foundation. He was so excited to tell me he was going to be doing that on live TV, and he called me to tell me about it. I mean, who does that?
Right. Same thing with last week. We had Andre Lacroix on the show doing his book, and of all people that for him to call, he calls you to promote his book and to sell it. I mean, just because he's that much of a friend to you, that he reached out to you first.
And, it's something to be said about that.
Right.
Brian Propp, Lou Nolan. Although he's a baseball player, Matt Stairs is a hockey player through and through, deep inside. I mean, come on. But we're getting sidetracked from what Law, and I'm surprised she hasn't reeled this back in about 10 minutes ago. She kind of let us go, and I know she wants to get the control of the show back. So we'll throw it back to her for now.
No. The only thing I was going to comment on was when Anthony asked earlier about, kind of what happened to those smaller shows and the bigger shows. I think, honestly, what happened was the trend started to change in the industry, and it didn't become about those cards anymore. It became about those autograph guests, because those smaller shows definitely didn't die until the 2000s, because I used to go with you on Saturdays, or I would have to stay with Mom while she worked the shop, and I have very clear memories of that. So I must have been 10, 11, 12 at that point.
And you loved every minute of it.
Well, yeah, because I got, my dad gave me a 20 and told me to, get lost for a while. So I could go to any store I wanted to. But I don't remember huge autograph guests at those shows. People came to see the dealers. People came to buy from the dealers. These huge shows that exist now
they come
those
for the
dealers
autograph.
are lucky to break even. No one's going to buy from those dealers now. They're going because there's a huge autograph guest. That wasn't the case in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Well,
So these little shows would have never lasted because they couldn't afford to bring in these guys that these bigger shows bring in. They would have never lasted to that degree. So it was the trend in the industry that really affected the shows, because people weren't collecting cards anymore. They were collecting autographs.
Right.
And Carl, when did you think that happened? Because, you used to mention, obviously kids come in all the time still to get cards, and that's the whole, crux of sort of the industry. But it seems like now a lot of people, no matter what your age, are looking for that big time Bryce Harper type autograph, whether you're a kid or an adult. You know what I mean? I used to be happy with just a couple cards.
No,
But-
not anymore.
Not anymore.
I'm fascinated by the kids that come in my dad's store, and it's not about collecting to put the set together anymore. It's about collecting to see what card they can get and then go sell it on eBay.
Yep.
I mean, they come in. We had to put signs up that say "Don't play with the packs" because they're touching the packs to see if they can feel a thicker card, knowing that it's a jersey or a back card or something like that. Kids back in the day came in to finish the set, not to score, the best card out of the box.
Yeah, but also back then you didn't have the
You
variety.
didn't have that memorabilia. You
Right.
didn't have that, oh, let's cut up this jersey and put it on a card. There wasn't
Right.
a thought process like that.
A card was a card, and
Right.
that was it.
Right.
So
But,
And-
speaking of small shows, I know you want to get back to the McDade Mall, and I certainly have fond memories of that place. But, Deb, when did you start? I mean, you started doing them as a dealer, but then you took it over.
That was at the McDade Mall.
Right.
A friend of ours decided to give it up, and I introduced another friend, who was doing some shows out in the Harrisburg area, and he ran them for a year or two, and then he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, and I felt bad, because I was personal friends with the manager at the McDade Mall, so I ran it until it closed.
Right.
Only because I had, it became part of your life. You know what I mean? I enjoyed going there. We would go to Nifty 50s and eat breakfast, and it was like the cool thing to do. We had fun, and we tried to work. The economics of bringing players in. I can remember, the wrestling show we had there. It was who? Superfly Snuka. It was Tito Santana and the Patriot. We had the three guys there up on the set. They had the best spot. They had a center stage right when you walked in. It was the coolest spot. You just you don't have those types of settings nowadays.
You don't even have malls nowadays.
This is true.
right.
This
Yeah.
is true.
Another thing, the inside malls are going away.
Yeah.
It's just sad. I remember, growing up in upstate New York, we were right between Albany and New York City. So like where we would be is where you would stop on the way to go to the next big market. So every single weekend, we had 5 or 6 malls. You'd open the newspaper because there was no internet, and that's how you'd find out who was coming. So Tito Santana one week, and then Phil Rizzuto the next week. And every week I was at a mall, begging my parents to take me to get whoever it was just so we could go and it was like $20 at the most we ever spent. Like, it was just fun. That's what you miss, like those memories of just walking around with your friends and talking to people and stuff like that.
Well, a lot of what we're talking about too kind of happened when it transitioned, when Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, I forget the other big name ball player that linked up with the casinos down in Atlantic City, and then they started running big shows down there as well. So everybody was kind of like taking a bite out of, different parts of, sports cards per se. Cause I mean, through it all, and Lauren, you can, talk about this a little bit because, it's Carl's Cards and Collectibles. It'll always be Carl's Cards because, I mean, that's how we got started. That's what we still sell today. Whether it's a pack of cards, whether it's a team set, whether it's a single card, somebody looking for, a Ben Simmons rookie, but it's always, where you got started. And that's what it's about.
Well, if you remember too, Carl, so like, I think it was when you mentioned Mickey Mantle, it was like, Ted Williams, a bunch of those guys were struggling to, they never got paid. So then before the internet, QVC and home shopping kicked off. And I remember my dad, getting Willie Mays jersey on QVC and then Mickey Mantle this and, whatever at the time. And it was like in the early 90s and we thought it was the coolest thing ever. So every time the sports show was on, we would buy everything that there was.
Yep.
But up until that point, that never even occurred to us to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Jack Broder's asking, was that Cliff? And it was Cliff. Cliff ran it for years at the McDade Mall. But before 7:30, comes around, we kind of want to break Steve Harris's chops here a little bit, because this is pretty cool stuff, because we were set up at the McDade Mall, and you never knew who you were going to set up next to. You might be the same guy, or you might get a new guy, and you're like, oh boy,
Who's this guy?
I got to put up with this guy now. Well, this guy's got a brother, so there's now two of them, right? And they set up,
Crossing my line. Stay on your side of the table.
and I'm just staring over at them, and they must have just built some wooden showcases that weekend in the garage, and I'm like, what the hell is this? They got clotheslines running, hanging their figures with what do they call them damn things that you
Clothespins?
Clothespins. They whipped out clothespins to hang these things up, and
That's where he's going.
I'm like, look at these hillbillies. Where the hell these hillbillies from? Steve Harris, am I right?
You are correct, 100%. And I think my mom even made a few comments about what the heck.
Oh, I'm sure she did. Because if there's anything I remember about those shows, is my father's setup was meticulous.
Oh yeah.
Regardless of where you went. Those giant pieces of plywood so he could make his table just a little bit bigger. And the cases and those plastic white shelves that we had to put together, and you were banging it down to make sure it was in there all the way. You had to lean the plaque on it, and it would fall.
With the plaque stands and
I mean, those setups, and then the body bags.
Locking everything up at night.
Just put everything. We had to put that down first, so at the end of the night we could lock everything in the body bag, and all. If it didn't fit perfectly. Otherwise it wouldn't zip. So yeah,
you got to have a system, right, Steve Harris?
We did have a system. We'd be in and out. We'd roll in there on a Thursday night setup, and
well, that was the coolest part, the Thursday night setup, because you're behind the scenes. You're in the back hallways of the mall. I mean, it's the coolest thing ever. No, normal people don't get to go back here. If it's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm 10 years old, I could definitely have school the next day. But here I am carrying in a box of cards, walking down the hallway, limited twos on one side, the gaps on the other, and there's this weird hallway we're walking down. It's creepy as hell, but here we are, and no one blinked an eye. But today, that you couldn't just walk into any random, the promoter would tell you, oh yeah, it's the door, it'll say limited 2, go to the door next to that. Well, the door next to that wasn't labeled at all, but we just opened it up and walked right in. And no one thought twice of it.
We got a lot of great comments and questions, and Sean Wyatt from a good friend that we've become really good friends with is asking what I did prior to the store. And I worked in sales. I worked for a couple of different steel companies, but I eventually made my way out to Downingtown, and that's how I got to do the shows on Wednesday night in Exton. It was kind of like a part-time kind of thing. So I was in sales for a long, long time, and then I transitioned over into doing what I'm doing now for the past 25 years. But that's how Steve Harris and I originally met, was in Exton at the Wednesday night card show. And then unbeknownst, here he is set up next to me at the McDade Mall, him and his brother. And I got along better with his brother Dave than I did Steve, because Steve didn't want to sell anything. He, if it was $100, it was $100. He wasn't budging off of it. And I would look at him and I'm like, dude, you can get like 10 more of those, right? I'm like, you just missed a great opportunity. And to this day, he still calls me and he goes, should I take $68 for that Pop Puck? And my answer is, if you don't sell it, I will.
I will.
Carl,
Right,
do you miss the plaques from the 90s? All those plaques.
I don't know.
You know what? He'll tell you, Steve bought me knee pads one year for Christmas, because I'd be on my knees all weekend building plaques, because people love them. They loved them. I went and bought an engraving machine and did my own engraving, because it was. We would sell hundreds of them through the course of the weekend. And again, it was an 8x10 photo. It was a couple of cards and a nameplate, and it was inexpensive. It was $20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and people loved it. And, you know, again, it was a transition that, you know, we went through. But we used to do another great mall, Plymouth Meeting Mall. They had I forget what night it was, maybe a Thursday. You know, we did Thursday night there, and then we went right to Neshemini from there for the weekend.
Yep.
So,
Well, transition a little bit from the shows to the store. What would you say? I mean, tons of people come in to sell you stuff all the time. What would you say is maybe the most interesting thing that's come through the door? Maybe somebody wasn't necessarily looking to sell it, but maybe they were looking for a case for it or what you thought it was worth. I know I certainly have my item in mind that recently came through the door.
I think we were all there. It was around Christmas time.
I mean, before we say it, is that the most exciting thing that you've ever seen come through the door?
Probably.
It was fake, Lauren.
Oh, was it?
He's
Just saying.
He's just saying that. You know, the guy came back. The guy came back and wanted to sell it to me.
He did.
Let me tell you something. I wouldn't be driving around with that in my truck if that was real. So,
All right. So the anticipation, I'm sure, is building.
Yeah.
Dad, what was the item?
The Babe Ruth autographed baseball.
Yeah.
But what made it special was the stitching.
It was a Bob Manford autograph. He was the commissioner on the baseball. They gave it away. Other than that, it was a perfect signature.
Why you got to kill the moment, John? We're all there.
That's why he's here. That's why he's here.
Didn't even seem that excited until
Yeah.
saw us excited.
well, he wasn't there to show us. He was there to buy a ball holder.
I know, but he was like, you know, I got this baseball that I need a holder for. You know, it's some guy, you know, it's a Babe Ruth ball. My grandfather gave it to me, and we're all like, what?
This
And
baby Ruth.
our excitement made him a little bit more excited. And then Santa, ironically, happened to be there. It was a Christmas party. And we're like, oh, you know, could Santa take a photo with you? He's like, well, be careful. Says the guy who just drove here with it on his front seat in no case. But, okay, sure. Yeah, no problem. It was the strangest thing.
So we do have a couple questions. Who's your biggest rival?
Yeah, you know, I saw that question,
Yeah.
and I mean, does rival mean like competitor or
We don't have any.
You know, I naturally we, you know, not everyone gets along. A couple people that I'm sure I pissed off, you know, because of the way I do things, and you know, I try to do things right, and a lot of people don't appreciate when you do things right all the time. But I don't know that I have one. I try to get along with everybody. I go back to the early 90s with, you know, George Nahm up in Levittown. You know, I mean, he's struggling to run 2 stores. I don't know how he does it. You know, take the virus out of it. It's a difficult economy. You know, people don't have that, you know, that throwaway income. You know, here's $50, you know, go buy a box of cards. Well, guess what? You can't get a box for $50 anymore. So, you know, that's a big problem.
Can't even get packs sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The hobby has changed. The industry has changed. You know, there's not many of us left anymore. So I don't know that I really have a rival.
If I could say, like, you know, more of as an outsider type thing, you guys have seemed to always just focus on what you're doing, if I could say that, and worry about yourselves. And that's sort of for everyone else to say who's the rival. You just have always worried about what you do best and perfected it. And that's just my thoughts.
Exactly the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, worry about yourself, and then everything else falls into place, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
You know, I mean, take care of your business, and if you I'm a people person, so I firmly believe if you take care of people, you know, even if they're not buying something from you that day, you know, you can still be courteous, you can still be nice, you know, you don't have to be, you know, belligerent like some people can. I mean, you're not buying a car, you're buying a card,
Right.
you know, so you know, there's not a whole lot of zeros in the transaction.
Right.
But no, I try to, you just try to treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Mhm.
And like you said, even if you sold something, and if you sold a card and it's $100 and you sold it for $75-$85, you made a deal, you made somebody happy, and then that person will come back to you, and it's all about like you said, the relationships that you have, that makes a business succeed by being able to have those relationships with people.
Well, I mean, my big thing, in life, because I've now spent 25 years, in this business, that, you come in as a customer and you go out as a friend, because I've made so many friends along the way, and many of them are on the board tonight.
Yep.
With their gracious comments and whatnot. But it's the truth. I mean, I've become friends with these people. I know I used to see them in spring training. Now I see them, through the course of the year, or they live in Florida. And when they come to visit, they make sure they come and see us. A lot of these people, like I said, they're special. You can go buy cards just about anywhere. You can go to Target, you can go to Walmart, but if you want to come in and shoot the breeze and, find out what's going on in the world and, talk whatever, I'm always there.
Right.
So I was hoping to have a little bit more time to dive into this topic, but I'm sure we can navigate this. But autograph guests have obviously become a huge, literally a crucial part of the industry. So Steve and Dad, who's your favorite guest? Who's your least favorite guest? Steve has sat next to probably 95% of the guys that we've had in the store. So Steve, who's your favorite and who's your least favorite?
Well,
and don't worry, none of them are watching, especially the least favorite ones.
Not least favorite, most difficult, I would say, maybe to deal with. Not favorite.
Okay.
And Carl knows it. Bake was tough on me. Bake McBride was tough.
And what made him tough?
Just the way, hey, Bake, can you sign this here? Well, what if I don't want to sign it there?
Well, tough shit.
Well, this is where the customer would like it signed. Everything was a
discussion.
Yeah.
He debated everything.
Yeah. And there's been some really difficult ones. Lenny wasn't difficult, but Lenny
it
owes
just took
me.
him a long time to get there.
And he owes me for a ding in my door, my car.
Right. Is there one of the best?
He was at the store, but he wasn't by himself. But we've had many private signings with him, and he always enjoys breaking my chops. Bobby Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bobby's always been great to me when we do the private signings. Not a big talker, but he will talk. If you talk to him, he will talk.
Sure.
And he'll give you his opinion and he was in the store, and I think he was great in the store too. He was there with Bobby, Bill Barber, and Reggie.
Mm-hmm.
But Bobby would probably have to be my favorite.
Wow.
Yeah, he's so down to earth, like you said. When we go to the private signings with him, it's like you walk by him, and it's like, well, that's Bobby Clark, and he's just like, okay, so
yeah. And then there's been some other good ones in the store. We've had, Billy Barber was great. Rick McLeish was great.
Gee, they're all hockey guys.
Yeah.
Well,
but they're not all hockey guys. There's been some really
Dick
good
Vermeil, Coach
good
Vermeil
baseball guys.
No,
was
absolutely. Coach Vermeil was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coach Vermeil was awesome. Vince Papale is always
Vince
awesome.
Papale. Stevie, your buddy, he was in the store.
Mm-hmm.
He was great. Some of the Reading guys.
We just have to learn. We just have to learn more Spanish.
But
Dad, what player have you spent the most on having?
Are we talking dollars?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think I mentioned it earlier. Probably, well,
40?
you know, that's you know, I got to backtrack because I think Cliff Lee.
Cliff Lee.
That's
think-
what I was thinking.
I think Cliff Lee got close to. I'm not even gonna spout out the numbers
A chunk of change.
because they were
Well, that was probably-
ridiculous.
That was 2 appearances.
That was 2. Yeah, both Cliff Lee appearances were phenomenal.
Right.
And it was a piece deal. And
Right.
and if people don't know what a piece deal is, you know, you're locked in at X amount of pieces in the deal. So let's just say it's 500 pieces at $20 a piece. Well, that's 10 grand.
Right.
You know, he was a whole lot more than that, but I was just doing simple math.
Mm-hmm.
But
a
a lot
couple
of the
sleepless nights.
yeah, especially the first one. The first one.
Right.
How about all the 08 guys that we had? All those 08 guys were great. The
Mhm.
08 Phillies,
Scott
you know,
Air,
you know, Greg Dobbs. I mean, you know,
Stare.
Chad Durbin, Stairs. You know, I mean, we now can communicate with Carlos Ruiz. When we first had him, how many times have we had him? 7 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't
mean-
understand a lick of what he was saying. You know, now, you know, we've both, you know, kind of engineered our way to learn a little Spanish, learn a little English, and here we are.
Well, my question was when he was catching and Chan Ho Park was pitching, how the hell did they communicate with one another?
I think they had a translator.
Is there a guy that you had that you would love to have back?
Yeah,
somebody that-
and we had the deal in place, and then unfortunately, you know, he got injured and then, you know, passed away, and that would have been Gordie Howe, because we were supposed to have Gordie and both Mark and Marty. We were supposed to have the Howe family together, and
That's
that
what I
would have
was
been
thinking, Hal.
that would have been absolutely phenomenal, because anybody that was there, you know, Mark ended up bringing Gordie to the store that day. And it was just a phenomenal experience, you know, with, you know, I mean, is he not the greatest hockey player ever?
Yeah.
Wow.
And did you know that beforehand that Mark Al was going to come with them
I did not know until that morning.
that morning?
Mark called me and he's like, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up, you know, that I'm going to be bringing, you know, Dad and you know, I'll just step aside. You guys can do your thing." And people were treated because they got Gordie's autograph, and then they walked to the back of the store and there was Mark, and they got a free Mark Howe autograph because, you know, he was so gracious and, you know, signed for everybody and took photos, and, you know, Gordie
was great.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal for a man that was going through what he was going through at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
He was great.
He was awesome. He was awesome. If I could get a do-over, that's a big one right there.
I was going to say, how many
I
times?
know that
did
was one of my big thrills, sitting next to him for, you know,
3 hours.
yeah. But, you know, it was Gordie Howe,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things, you know, if we're into the takeaways for the night, that's my kind of takeaway from it is I think a lot of times for me, because I've been a part of so many of these signings, that it kind of becomes a commonplace sort of thing. The guys come in and, you know, they walk by me and, you know, I shake their hand, and it doesn't really faze me much anymore. And sometimes I have to remember, you know, who that person is. Because to me, it's just, oh, it's another Saturday at Dad's. You know, who we having this week? And it takes somebody special sometimes for me to realize what it is that we're doing on a daily basis. Because for the most part, I take a lot of it kind of for granted. Especially now with everything that's happening, you know, these Saturdays don't really exist anymore with signings.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've seen thousands of players, I've seen people that others would die to meet. And I've stood across from them for 2 hours and not said a word because I was like, oh, whatever.
And just,
But I think that's the one thing is just sometimes you kind of forget like how exciting that can
but I'll
be.
agree with you, Lauren. You realize how excited people get when they come in.
Right. I mean, a lady cried when we had Keith Primu
Keith Primu.
because that was her captain or whatever she
Yeah.
mumbled as she was bawling. But, you know, it's just fascinating to kind of see how
Oh.
excited people get. Meanwhile, I'm okay. Can I see your ticket? You know, I'm
And Lauren, and I'll be Lauren, how many did they have?
yeah, you know, I'm like, Steve, this guy had 3 premiums, 3, not 4, 3.
But we don't realize how lucky we are to meet all these people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big thing. You know, Gordie Howe was there and I remember it. You know, I remember him being a little wacky, but great. But I don't remember being overly like, oh my God, this is Gordie Howe. You know, and so I think that's kind of the weird thing about this business is when you do it so much that you kind of just, it's another Saturday at Dad's.
Let's you know, we're already over the hour and I think we're gonna, you know, continue with this a little bit, but stop and think about this. Hall of Famers, Steve Carlton, Robin Roberts, Jim Bunning, they've all been to the store. You know, they've all been gracious, they've all been great. You know, I heard all the horror stories of working with Steve Carlton. You know, he was a bitch to work with, and he was one of the easiest guys to work with. So, you know, you hear, you know, tales and stories from, you know, outside the, you know, the business, how difficult some guys are. And when they come into a mom and pop shop, a family atmosphere setting that we have, you know, that we present to people. And we're one of the last companies that still allows people to take pictures with the players, and we don't charge. You know, we go over and above. But we've had a lot of big names. You know, we've had a gazillion not so big names, but they're all good people. They're athletes, and you know, when they shake your hand and you know they remember your name 2 hours later, there's something special about that.
Some of the, you know, just to go real quick, I mean, some of the people, it's not necessarily the athletes. It's not necessarily their fault. They've probably not been treated as well at other places or other.
They've been taken advantage of.
Right. So if they come to your place and you greet them with a handshake and you have someone outside to meet them out front and come in and they feel comfortable and they know they're going to be taken care of, then most people, if you're a normal person, you're going to treat people well.
Well, and that's what I was going to go off of. You know, we don't have a back room. This isn't, you know, a mass production. You know, we don't throw a pile of jerseys down in front of them. You know, when there's not a customer, Steve will feed a few photos through, but we don't overwhelm them. And I think that's why a lot of guys have become good friends of the store. And we've had so many repeat guests. And this isn't to toot our own horn at all, but just the atmosphere. I think the player also has a little bit of a reality check. They're like, wow, this is like an experience, kind of like this is how it's supposed to be. These are the fans coming to see me, and I get to meet them and interact with them. And I'm not in a dark dungeon in the back signing until my hand falls off, you know, because it's a business. It's about that experience and that interaction with that player that I don't think happens at many places because they're just trying to, you know, it's a cattle chute. They're just trying to push you through as quick as possible.
And Carl, just to touch real quick on what you said about the players and the experience, and they remember Ian LaPerriere. He's been at the store a couple times. He did your thing. I was up in Canada at the Flyers game. Who do I see walking down the street out in front? LaPerriere. I stopped and talked to him. Hey, I remember, you know, Carl's Cards. I mean, there's an impression that you leave with somebody that they remember, and that was 2 years probably after you had them.
Yep.
Well,
Lauren and I were at the Stadium Series experience just 2 years ago, and we took a tour in the locker room, and he saw us from across the room and beeline right for us. Remembered both of our names, had a conversation. I mean, we had to catch up with our group, or we'd have probably still been there talking. Again, there you go, another hockey player.
I was going to say another hockey guy.
Yep.
It's just, the experiences are priceless to me. I mean, and all you guys have experienced it. Mario's been in the store for some of them. You got hollered at by Jay Bruce for videotape. We can't let that go. He didn't want no parts of that. He wanted that shut off right away.
He just wanted to make
Because I was
sure
interrogating him.
Yeah, he just wanted to make sure he wasn't.
Because John couldn't leave it alone about getting
Well, you had to break it down when you had a chance. And Jay was giving us the honest answer.
And Mario wanted that. He wanted that on tape.
On tape.
To be honest, Mario, and you can attest this, I'm not even sure you were paying attention to what exactly was even being said, because I don't know how well you could even hear it from where you weren't until the guy was like, "Can you turn that off?"
So I was asked to go live, so I didn't do it out of my own free will, and I did. So he started talking.
So wait, you're throwing us under the bus now?
Oh, no. No, it has because at that time we were just talking, right? So then, of course, John with the questions, throwing Kapler under the bus, and Jay Bruce was being very, very honest, and he was telling us exactly what he felt. And at that point, he's like, "You recording this?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're live on Facebook." He's like, "Yeah, could you not do that?" So it was an eye-opening experience for me. So, but he was really nice about it. He's actually a really nice guy.
Yep.
Oh yeah, he was awesome.
So
yeah, and just like as you were saying before, having Jason Kelsey at your store 2 days after the parade. I mean, 1,000 people at the store. I mean, how crazy was that?
Yeah.
In the rain.
That was the craziest day I've ever experienced at that store in my life.
Right.
By
And
far.
then, well, that was just like when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl the first time. Who did you have?
John Runyon and Hank Fraley.
Yep, and the line was down, and it was snowing down Darby Road, and trucking through to get people tickets, and it was.
Yep.
I mean, like you said, it's all experiences.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I think there needs to be a part 2 of this show. So maybe we can pick this conversation back up next Wednesday.
Works
An hour
for me.
wasn't long enough.
I'll be here.
It goes quick, that hour.
Dad, would you like to announce our guest for Monday?
I
Quickly?
would, but I want to hand it off to my buddy there that helps run the Reading Fight and Phils, because this is a big deal. So why don't you take it away, AP?
I have no idea.
Apparently he doesn't know.
You didn't get the email?
Yeah,
He didn't get the memo.
I wasn't on that email list, I guess.
No.
I wasn't on the script memo, so.
We're well-informed group. I see this.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So our guest Monday night is going to be Derek Hall.
There you go.
Derek most recently was in camp with the Phillies. He was in Reading last year, had another great season. He's on the radar. Hopefully, I'm not sure where he fits in with the current squad, but definitely between the current squad and AAA for sure. But all I can say is all he does is hit dingers.
Right.
You know,
Home run derby champion.
he mashes the ball. We've become good friends with him as well. So Monday night he will be live here with us. So Derek Hall. So that's who we got.
That's who we got.
Yeah, he's also a young guy who gets it. He's a very young guy, but he also is very personable, and
Yes.
he's one of the good guys for sure.
Yep. Absolutely. And
Yes.
we had Derek and Cornelius when we did the live show up in Reading last year. They were gracious to come over for 15 minutes or so and interview before the game. Great guys, great young guys. And, you know, you want to see those guys make it to the big show.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All right, fellas.
We
So,
doing
We doing
doing ta-
takeaways, or we just?
I mean, at this point, I think we might be good and can certainly wrap the show.
All right.
All right.
yeah, we're an hour and 10 minutes into the show. So
Nothing wrong with that.
no, it's been a great show. I hope I didn't talk too much.
People loved it. I think next Wednesday we should definitely do a round 2 because people
Yep.
love these, love shows like this to talk about, the time that they had and how things have changed. People like it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So, all right, we'll bring it to a close at 7:40, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys Monday night with Derek Hall. All right.
Thanks.
Have
Thank
a
you.
great
guys.
night, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.